When a millionaire went broke to test his son, the devastating truth revealed at midnight, in the dead of night, under a pale moon that cast eerie shadows, a millionaire named Victor Harrington stood on the edge of everything he had built, teetering between power and despair. Astonishingly, he had decided to throw it all away: bank accounts, luxury cars, sprawling mansions, to unleash a test on his son, Daniel. He wanted to see if the boy would rise to the occasion, or if he would collapse under the weight of loss. The night air crackled with tension. What could drive a man to such madness? Victor watched as the darkness wrapped around him like a whispering ghost, stirring memories and fears that clawed at his sanity. His heart raced as he imagined Daniel's reaction: the shock, the betrayal. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, tightening his chest. Would his son, once groomed for greatness, turn his back on his father? Or would he find resilience buried beneath the ashes of wealth? It was a gamble no sane person would take, but Victor was far from sane at that moment. A chilling wind blew across the empty street, rattling the leaves that scattered like small, frightened creatures. Shadows danced behind him, the only witnesses to this desperate plan. He could hear the distant clang of a metal sign swaying in the gust, a haunting echo that mirrored the turmoil in his heart. In the stillness, every creak and whisper amplified his anxiety, urging him to act before the clock struck midnight. Then it hit him: the night was more than just a test. It was a ticking bomb filled with paradoxes. He could feel it in the air, a spark of hopelessness intertwined with anticipation. What if the truth, once revealed, shattered the bond they shared? As doubt settled in his mind, a new fear gripped him: could this gambit uncover secrets darker than he ever imagined? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Victor approached their home, his pulse quickened. The lights flickered through the windows, casting a warm glow that felt out of place in his spiraling thoughts. But inside, things were anything but calm. He could feel the palpable tension in the air, thick enough to cut with a knife. What awaited him was not just a son but a reckoning, a moment that could unravel them both. With trembling hands, he pushed the door open, its creak echoing like a scream in the silence. Inside, everything was familiar yet foreign, as if he were stepping into a different world. Shadows loomed in corners, and the clock ticked ominously in the background, each second bringing him closer to revelation. Victor had plunged into uncertainty, and as he prepared to face Daniel, a single question echoed in his mind: would this heartless experiment lead to a lesson or a tragedy? Victor stepped inside, the door barely whispering shut behind him. The warmth from the lights did little to ease the cold sweat on his brow. Every heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out the tick-tock of the clock, which suddenly felt like a countdown to disaster. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a silhouette against the brightness, head down, shoulders slumped. The sight struck Victor like a physical blow. His son looked smaller, lost in a sea of uncertainty. How had they reached this point? There was a world of opulence outside that old door, but tonight, it meant nothing. Daniel, Victor called, his voice cracking, barely above a whisper. The boy's head snapped up, eyes wide with confusion. Dad? His voice trembled, laced with suspicion. Listen, I need to talk to you, Victor began, crossing the room, each step feeling labored as if he waded through mud. What happened? You didn't call. I thought you'd been in an accident. Victor paused, swallowing hard, his throat dry like sandpaper. He could almost hear the echoes of their laughter from years past, the joy that seemed to hang in the very air around them. There's something I need to explain. Daniel's expression shifted, a mix of concern and fear replaced innocence. Explain what? Why have you been gone so long? Those questions hammered Victor's chest. What had he done? What kind of father throws his son into the depths of despair to build character? I made a mistake, he finally admitted, the words tasting bitter. I wanted to see you. Wanted to see what? Daniel's eyes narrowed, slowly rising from the table. What kind of father puts his son through hell to prove a point? Every minute dragged like a weighted shackle as Victor struggled to respond. He was prepared for defiance but not for the raw hurt that settled in Daniel's gaze. The boy was not merely a child anymore, he was a young man, forged through trials, not the pampered child who was used to having everything handed to him. Victor's heart sank further. I wanted to see if you would rise to the occasion, to see if you'd understand what it means to fight for what you want. Fight for what? Daniel's voice cracked like thunder, echoing in the stillness. Fight for you. For money. For some twisted idea of love. You have to trust me, Daniel. Victor gasped, his desperation bleeding through. You don't understand. I was trying to prepare you for life, to hold on to the things that truly matter. By ripping away everything that does. Daniel shouted, anger and anguish intermixed. You think it was about the money? I wanted my dad, not some game. You've turned this family into a joke. Silence fell heavy, drowning them both in a suffocating weight. Daniel's eyes sparkled with unshed tears, and Victor struggled to breathe, realization crashing over him like a tidal wave. Each second stretched like eternity. Emotion flooded the room, raw and honest. But buried underneath was a darker secret, one he wasn't ready to reveal, the truth behind their family facade. I just wanted you to see the truth. Victor burst out, his breath ragged. The truth that choices have consequences. But I see. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. A loud crash echoed from the back of the house, a shattering sound, sharp and unexpected. Dad? What was that? Daniel's voice trembled, urgency creeping in. Victor's heart raced again, realization coiling like a snake in the pit of his stomach. Stay here. He yelled, fear mixing with a primal instinct to protect. But as he turned to face the abyss of the hallway, he felt a heavy dread wash over him. What awaited them in the darkness? He took a deep breath and stepped forward, knowing the answers hidden in those shadows could change everything. Victor moved cautiously into the darkened hallway, the lingering shadows whispering secrets meant to stay hidden. Each step felt like treading on thin ice, the cracking silence amplifying his every heartbeat. The air thickened with tension as he squinted, trying to pierce through the blackness, the eerie quiet only interrupted by the distant sound of glass crunching beneath heavy boots. Daniel, he murmured, conscious of holding back the absolute panic clawing at his insides. The boy's presence anchored him, even now, with fear edging into his voice. I can't see anything, Dad. Daniel called nervously, his voice wavering. The sound rattled through the empty spaces, serving as a reminder that they were not alone. As Victor reached the kitchen threshold, he considered returning to protect Daniel. But in the shadows, they were already in danger, and running back to the light felt more cowardly than strategic. He moved forward, hoping the shifting shapes weren't the tendrils of his own guilt manifesting as fear. His fingers brushed against the wall, guiding him until he reached the kitchen doorway. The flickering from outside augmented the weight of dread. Outside, the world glittered obliviously, cars passing, laughter resounding, life continuing on. In the corner of his eye, something flickered, a pale light. He turned, heart pounding, sensing that the disaster might not just be inside the house. Then he saw it. The back door stood ajar, hanging like a pendulum, swaying slightly as if beckoning him into the abyss. He crept closer, every muscle taut with anticipation. A gut-wrenching thought struck him. What if it wasn't some chaotic accident that caused the noise? What if they weren't safe here? Dad, I don't like this. Daniel's voice crept up behind him, panic threading through the air. Stay back, Daniel. I don't know what's going on, Victor shot back tersely, wishing for the calm both of them desperately needed. He slowly opened the back door wider, letting the cool night air rush in, heavy with the scent of rain. Beyond the threshold, the figures shifted in the darkness, indiscernible silhouettes painting a grotesque picture of foreboding. Shadows darted, whispering secrets to the night as Victor strained to discern what lay beyond. Then, bursting from the night came a figure. A sunken face marred by tension, eyes wide and wild. It was Derek, the family's estranged partner. "Victor! They're looking for you." Panic exploded from him, voice ragged. "You need to hide." Confusion surged through Victor, an avalanche of questions threatening to drown him. He tried to grasp the enormity of what Derek was saying. "Who? What do you mean?" His thoughts ricocheted wildly. "They know what happened. They're coming for you." Derek glanced back, as if expecting shadows to leap from the bushes. A sharp flare of alarm shot through Victor like electricity. I don't understand. Trust me. You have to go. Now." Derek's urgency pulled Victor forward into the darkness of the night. "Dad!" Daniel's voice pierced through the chaos, concern drumming into Victor's resolve. In one decision, momentum unfurled as dread tightened its grip. The ghosts of past mistakes loomed larger than life around him, but his son needed him now more than ever. "Stay close, Daniel," Victor commanded, steeling himself against the rising tide of uncertainty. But as he turned to usher Daniel away from the house, a glimmer of movement caught his eye behind Derek, a glint of steel in the unyielding shadows. A gun. Panic seized him. "Get down!" he shouted, instinctively pulling Daniel low as adrenaline surged through his veins. What had started as a father-son confrontation now spiraled into something far darker. The stakes had escalated beyond their comprehension, and the trust that was threadbare between them began to fray completely. "Run!" Victor yelled, pivoting toward the approaching threat. But as they dashed into the unknown, Victor felt a chilling certainty in his gut. The truth he'd been wrestling with was coming to light, and it was more devastating than he ever could have anticipated. What secrets were about to unfold in a world tilted on its axis? What would they find when they reached safety, or if they could? Victor's feet hit the cold earth, and adrenaline surged through his veins like wildfire. He felt Daniel's small form pressing against him, the boy's pulse racing in sync with his own. They ran, the shadows flickering behind them, the weight of Derek's voice lingering ominously in the air. "Where do we go?" Daniel gasped, breath hitching as they veered left onto a narrow path shrouded in darkness. It was thick and suffocating, tangling in the branches that reached down like grasping fingers. "Why do they want you?" "They think I did something wrong," Victor stammered, the truth clawing its way to the surface. The weight of his decisions pinned him down, and still, he pushed on. "Why would they hurt us?" Daniel's voice trembled, his small frame quaking with fear. "Just keep running," Victor urged, glancing back. A figure loomed behind them, the outline sharp yet indistinct, their presence like a knife cutting through the night. They weren't alone, and panic surged anew. "Victor!" Derek's voice sailed through the darkness, desperate and shrill. "This way!" He was several steps behind, running too, but fear drove them all toward the trees which lined the yard like an impenetrable fortress. Victor's heart hammered. "We can't leave him. He helped us." But the fear for Daniel's safety surged stronger, their lives were at stake. "Dad!" Daniel cried, pulling hard at Victor's arm. "We can't help him if we're caught." The urgency in Daniel's voice was like a whip, snapping Victor back to reality. He vowed to return for Derek, but survival was the only option for now. They ducked beneath a low-hanging branch and stumbled into the nearby woods, the underbrush crunching beneath their feet. The shadows wrapped around them, suffocating but protective at once. Victor paused, whipping around to check the density of the darkness behind them. The sound of footsteps faded, but a low growl rumbled somewhere deep in the trees, sending chills down his spine. "We need to find a place to hide." "Talk to me, Daniel," Victor said, scanning the territory. "Dad, I am scared," came Daniel's shaky reply, eyes wide and glistening in the faint moonlight. "What if they find us?" Victor knelt down, clutching Daniel's shoulders. I need you to be brave, buddy. Just a little longer, okay? I won't let anyone hurt you. The boy nodded, the trust in his gaze giving Victor a flicker of strength. They pushed further into the woods, branches whipping at their legs and arms like impatient ghosts, but as they moved deeper, the world around them changed. The cool night air turned stifling, saturated with the raw scent of sorrow. The trees loomed taller, their gnarled limbs twisting into shapes that threatened to ensnare them. That way, Victor pointed to a grove of trees. We can hide in there suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the silence that left their hearts racing. Victor whirled, eyes wide. Something was wrong. Something wasn't right. Daniel, stay! The warning died on his lips as the growl returned, more menacing. They weren't just hiding from men, something darker lurked closer than he had anticipated. Then he saw it, a pair of glowing eyes emerging from the shadows. A figure, low to the ground, slowly stepped into the light filtering through the trees. It was a man, face obscured by shadows, holding the gun that had once glinted ominously near Derek. Victor, the man's voice was a chilling mix of familiarity and hostility. You shouldn't have come here. Time froze. Victor's heart raced not just with fear, but with the realization that their past had found them in this suffocating night. Run! He barked, pushing Daniel forward, just as the man raised his gun. But what lay ahead was worse than Victor could ever have imagined. Beneath the horror, a question burned: would their past consume them, or could they claw their way back to safety from the brink of doom? The answer loomed closer, caught in those illuminated eyes that held unspoken truths. And as they ran through the dark woods, the twisted threads of fate pulled tighter, preparing them for a confrontation that would change everything. The darkness around them seemed to throb, pulsating like a living organism eager to swallow them whole. Victor could feel the pulse of fear thrumming in his ears, drowning out the regular night sounds. Daniel stumbled, barely managing to keep his footing as they darted deeper into the woods. Victor, I can't, Daniel gasped. Just keep going. Victor urged, his heart pounding like a war drum. He could still see the outline of the man in the shadows. He could feel the gun's weight pressed against his back, like a ghost whispering threats in his ear. Where are we going? Daniel cried, tears trembling at the edges of his voice. Victor didn't have an answer. Instinct drove him forward, guided by the low growl that hinted at something inhuman lurking close behind. The air felt charged, heavier than it should be, thick with the unseen. When they finally reached a clearing, the moonlight filtered down in jagged beams, illuminating the underbrush. Victor and Daniel darted into the tangle of bushes, forcing themselves into a tight space where the foliage wrapped around them like a shroud. The edges scratched at their skin, but he held on, clenching Daniel's small hand in his. Dad, I can't breathe. Daniel whimpered. Shoo. Victor pressed a finger to his lips. They had to remain quiet. The growl was closer now, a low rumble that vibrated through the ground like thunder. Victor's throat tightened. He could feel the boy's small frame shaking beside him, could sense the questions swirling in Daniel's mind, the weight of uncertainty closing in. Time stretched, each second felt like a lifetime. Then there was a crack, louder than the last, echoing through the trees. Victor. Derek's voice cut through the tension like a knife, ripping reality wide open. It was faint, a tailor-made cry for help that rushed toward them through the tangled branches. Derek was still out there. Do you hear him? Daniel whispered, the tremor in his voice more pronounced. Stay here. I'll go get him, Victor said, though his heart screamed for him to keep Daniel safe. But he couldn't abandon Derek. He had fought for them too. No. Daniel's eyes widened in horror. He clutched Victor's hand tighter, his pale knuckles straining against the darkness. Please, don't leave me. A siren, muffled but present, cut through the night. Its presence tinged Victor's fear with hope. Somewhere out there, someone was responding. But would they reach them in time? Would they find Derek? Daniel, you have to trust me, Victor breathed, using a touch of desperation. He nodded toward the sound. Help is coming. I'll be right back. You need to be brave. Daniel's face contorted with fear, tears streaming down, reflecting the pale moonlight. What if you don't come back? Victor felt the lump in his throat, a wave of conflicting emotions crashing over him. I will come back, he promised, though doubt gnawed at him. But homesickness for his son's safety ignited a fire under his skin. Just as Victor squeezed Daniel's hand reassuringly, something rustled in the nearby bushes, a careening shadow darting fast, snatching his attention. Before he could turn, the man appeared, face still hidden. You're making a mistake, Victor, he said, voice smooth and low, but wrapped in a sinister undertone. Don't you want to know the truth? Victor's instincts screamed at him to run. Daniel's sobs echoed in his ears as terror rippled through him. He could see the gun glinting, could feel the air thicken as he faced the embodiment of his past. Truth. Victor's voice cut through the tension, his heart racing. What truth? In a world built on lies, it's the past that will destroy you both. You've built a life on broken promises. With that, the man took a step closer, and the darkness around them tightened as if feeding off the fear that lingered in the air. Run. Victor whispered to himself, glancing back at Daniel. But he could no longer ignore the weight of the moment. He needed to confront this. Tell me. He demanded, the gravity of his words echoing through the grove. But with one last defiant roar from the entity behind them, he felt the ground shift, and panic surged anew. The choice hung heavy in the air: confront the darkness or save his son. But would his decision seal their fate once and for all? And as shadows collided around them, the chilling question remained, could Victor unearth the truth without losing everything he fought for? Victor's breath caught as he faced the man cloaked in darkness, his heart racing against the encroaching threat. The gun glinted like a knife under the moonlight, a cruel reminder that every second counted. Daniel's frightened whimpers echoed in his ears, urging him to protect the boy at all costs. Please just let us go, Victor said, trying to keep his voice steady. The man's expression remained hidden, but a sadistic smile seemed to curl his lips beneath the shadow of his hood. Why would I do that? Don't you want to know why I'm here? Why Derek had to scream? Daniel pressed his body against Victor, the boy's small hands trembling violently. Dad, please. He choked out, his innocence drowning in fear, and Victor felt a sharp pang stab at his heart. Tell me what you want. Victor shouted, the heat of desperation suffocating him. He gripped Daniel tightly, aware that every second was a step closer to a breaking point, a point that could tear apart everything he held dear. The man took another menacing step forward, his presence a black hole sucking the light away. You think you can keep him safe while you're unwilling to embrace the truth? That truth your whole life has led up to. I don't care about your games. Victor spat, staving off the rising dread. He had to stall. What do you want? The man chuckled, deep and haunting. Everything you hold dear, Victor. Your son's safety comes at a price. The light you seek hides in the shadows of your past. You've already lost, Haven Tu. You're just too afraid to accept it. Victor's pulse quickened at the implication. What do you know about my past? More than you think, he said, crawling towards them like a predator. Every decision you've made has led you here to this moment of reckoning. Suddenly, another sound sliced through the chaos. A crack of branches echoed just around the corner of the clearing. Shadows moved, and Victor's instincts kicked into high gear. Daniel, we need to move. Where, Dad? Daniel's voice was raw with fear, his eyes darting wildly, but before Victor could respond, the shape of a figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette that momentarily stole Victor's breath. Derek? Had help finally arrived? But no, it wasn't Derek. The figure was larger, broader, and the face that emerged from the shadows sent a jolt of panic racing through him. It was the man he had trusted, a friend turned foe, Samuel. Victor, stop! Samuel shouted, the edge of fear creeping into his voice, urgency radiating off him like wildfire. You don't understand. The threat loomed larger as Victor squared his shoulders. Don't come any closer, he warned. The gun in the shadowed man's hands caught the moonlight again, gleaming ominously. Samuel, what the hell is going on? Victor demanded, desperate for answers as the tension wrapped around them like a noose. Listen to me. We don't have time for this. Samuel's eyes flickered between Victor and the cloaked figure. He's plotting something, you have to trust me. Victor felt like he was being pulled apart, each side battling for control. Behind him, Daniel was shaking, future and safety intertwining with imminent peril. Daniel, I need you to be strong. But Daniel whimpered. Just hold on. Victor shouted, as uncertainty closed in around them like a thunderous storm. The cloaked man remained silent, watching the chaos unfold with a calm demeanor, but Victor could sense the storm brewing. In that heartbeat of chaos, something ignited deep inside him, a flicker of defiance. Samuel, talk. What is the truth? What is his plan? But before Samuel could respond, a piercing cry erupted through the woods, a guttural scream of anguish that shook Victor to his core. Derek! He gasped. The truth isn't what you think. Samuel cried desperately. It goes back further than you know. The ground seemed to shift again, fear and urgency colliding. Victor turned to see Daniel, drawing away slightly, his wide eyes so filled with confusion and fear. Dad, please. I want to go home. Victor made a decision, heart hammering. We run now, no matter what. He took a step towards the encroaching darkness, adrenaline surging. The shadows gathered, whispers curling through the air like smoke. Each moment felt like a cliffhanger, uncertainty gnawing at him. Could he escape the truth before it engulfed them both? Could they outrun the specters stalking them? And as the howls grew louder, one thing became fatal clear: the true battle had just begun. Victor tightened his grip on Daniel, the boy's frightened breaths hitting the cold air like fragile glass. Every part of him screamed to flee, yet he felt anchored, trapped between the shadow of danger and the distant cries of Derek. The figure cloaked in darkness stood before them, its posture relaxed but the gun poised, a fearful contradiction. Samuel darted closer, desperate. They're coming for us, Victor. We have to go, now. A sudden rustle from behind Samuel sent a shiver down Victor's spine. Get down! Victor yelled, instinct overriding reason. He shoved Daniel to the ground beside him and dropped to a crouch, the inner warning bells shrieking louder. The air thickened with dread as another figure stepped into the clearing, tall and lumbering, casting a long shadow that merged with the darkness surrounding them. Victor's heart raced. Was this another ally or an enemy? Get away from him, Samuel! The new figure yelled, a gravelly voice laced with authority. It was Thomas. This wasn't just a reunion of old friends, this was a confrontation, and it could end violently. Thomas, this isn't what it looks like. Samuel pleaded, his voice breaking. We don't have time for this. You always said that. Thomas shot back, eyes narrowing as he glared at the man he once called a friend. Now you're dragging Victor and his kid into your mess. Victor felt a new wave of panic crash over him. Why are you here, Thomas? He demanded, every word dripping with urgency. What are you doing? Trying to save you, or what's left of you. Thomas spat, disbelief clouding his face. You need to wake up, Victor. This whole thing is a trap. The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The cloaked figure shifted, its attention caught by Thomas's revelation. How quaint, it sneered, voice low and mocking. They think they can play God. Do you see this, Victor? Friends turning against each other, all because of your choices. Victor's blood boiled. This isn't about me. It's about Daniel. Is it really? The cloaked man hissed, eyes glinting with malice. "You're past one to let go so easily, Victor. Isn't that the lesson here? The more you fight it, the closer it gets." Daniel shivered beside him, clutching at Victor's shirt in a small gesture of fear. "Dad, I'm scared," he whispered, voice trembling. The gun remained leveled, every heartbeat echoing louder, drowning out the chaos. Victor could feel an uncontrollable surge of protective instinct. "Samuel, Thomas, if we're getting out of this, we have to work together now." But as the words left his mouth, the cloaked figure suddenly lunged forward with lightning speed, gun aimed straight at them. "No!" Victor cried, shoving Daniel behind him, his body a shield. The gunshot pierced through the night, echoing with a deafening ring, and everything froze for an eternal moment. Pain seared through his side, hot and violent. He fell to the ground, a stunned gasp escaping his lips, while the world tilted on its axis. "Dad!" Daniel's scream sliced through the thick fog of confusion. Victor blinked up at the night sky, panic clouding his vision. He could barely hear the chaotic movements and muffled voices around him. Struggling, he reached for Daniel through a haze, fear clawing at his insides. "Stay close, buddy." He gasped, but each word felt like dragging a boulder uphill. Panic switched gears into a primal rage. Thomas shouted something about a plan. Samuel cursed above him, and the cloaked man's laughter echoed like a sinister bell tolling in Victor's mind. The darkness felt alive, closing in on him. As the fear tightened like a vice around his chest, Victor realized he hadn't just been fighting for Daniel, he was fighting for the truth buried deep in his past, a truth that could shatter everything he loved. But just as shadows loomed and hope began to flicker wild and weak, he saw a flicker of light, the distant outline of Derek, gasping, raiding through the thickets. "Help me!" Victor managed to croak, a desperation ringing in his voice. Yet the looming question burned in his mind: did that light mean salvation or the final nail in their coffin? The pieces were falling into place, and he could sense the storm breaking. But exactly who would emerge unscathed when the dust settled? Victor's heart raced as he fought to stay conscious, the looming truth threatening to smother him. Could he fight through the pain and uncover what was really at stake? With the night stretching on, it felt like they were only just stepping into the dark. Victor's vision swirled, a muddled haze of darkness and flashing lights. He felt the cold ground beneath him, hard and unforgiving, every breath a struggle. Daniel's terrified face loomed over him, eyes wide with fear, and his small hands moved restlessly over Victor's shirt, searching for comfort. "Dad, please." Daniel's voice trembled, laced with urgency. Victor wanted to reassure him, to promise everything would be okay, but words felt trapped in his throat. The high-pitched sting of gunfire still rang in his ears, echoing ominously with each heartbeat. "Stay behind me," he rasped, forcing himself to shift slightly, desperate to shield his son from the chaos closing in. But with every inch he moved, pain ripped through him like wildfire, and he gasped. "Get Thomas, Samuel. Help him." Derek's voice cut through the din, commanding, but Victor couldn't form coherent thoughts. Desperately, he blinked against the brutal darkness closing over his vision. "Right, we'll take care of him," Thomas replied sharply, despite the tremor in his own voice. Victor felt the ground shake as figures rushed around him, but the world continued to spin, and he fought to grasp onto clarity. Distant shouts and cursed warnings blended into a confused frenzy, but urgency ignited something inside him. He couldn't give up. Not now. Not when Daniel was watching. A flash of movement jerked his attention back to the menacing figure cloaked in darkness. The intruder moved methodically, as if savoring the chaos, a predator circling its prey. Victor's heart pounded in sync with the booming tension, realizing that this was more than just a fight for survival. This was a reckoning, the culmination of choices made long ago. "Look at you all," the man taunted, his voice dangerously calm. "So desperate, so predictable. You can't hide from the truth forever, Victor." Victor forced himself to stand, grimacing as he placed weight on his aching side, fueled by raw instinct. "What do you want?" Your past demands an audience, the cloaked man drawled, a twisted smile creeping across his face. You've built a life laced with secrets, and soon, every one of those secrets will claw their way to the surface. Something about those words struck a chord deep within Victor, sharp and painful. It was true. He carried the burden of his past, the choices he made, the people he hurt. Daniel was caught in the middle, and it wasn't fair. He was just a child. Panic time traveled forward as the scene stretched out into a horrifying future where his son would pay for Victor's mistakes. Fear clawed up his spine, but he had to fight back. This ends here. I won't let you touch him. Touch him. The cloaked man chuckled darkly, but the sound quickly turned sharp. He brandished the gun, the metallic glint casting an icy flare of intent. It's already too late. The truth is coming, and it won't be pretty. In one swift movement, Thomas lunged forward, attempting to distract the cloaked figure, a hail of shouting and chaos breaking out. Victor took his chance, adrenaline coursing through him like fire. He needed to protect Daniel, needed to forge a way out of this nightmare. Run! He shouted, voice ragged yet fierce. Get to safety, now. Daniel hesitated, fear flashing in his big eyes, but Victor's resolute gaze pushed him forward. As the boy darted back into the trees, Victor's heart sank. The position was dire, yet the strength of a father surged within him. But before he could push himself up completely, a cold hand gripped Victor's arm, yanking him back. You're not going anywhere, the cloaked man hissed, the gun once again aimed squarely at him. Victor's pulse quickened. He could feel death whispering a promise in his ear, chilling and intimate. But the shadows weren't the only ones closing in. Samuel and Thomas were rallying together, their voices blending into a ragtag shout of defiance. Their silhouettes swayed against the backdrop of eerie moonlight, but would they be enough to sever the grip of darkness gripping Victor? With his vision narrowing and air thickening, one question surged above the rest. Could he rally this fractured team before all hope slipped away? And as the darkness swelled, something deep within him ignited, not just for Daniel. For the truth. It was time to confront the wreckage of his choices, even as night drew close, bringing calamity with it. The clamor of salvation erupted around him like wildfire, but would he be able to seize it before the inevitable crush of fate sealed their doom? The sudden grasp on Victor's arm twisted with the force of iron. Panic ignited in his chest, a wild burst of energy that pushed against the barriers of pain holding him down. The figure leaned closer, their breath hot and suffocating. Isn't it ironic? He sneered, eyes glinting with sadistic glee. You have everything to lose, and still you fight. Around them, the atmosphere crackled, the chaos of shouts and gunfire hitting like a tempest. Thomas and Samuel surged forward, but their shouts were muffled under the weight of Victor's racing thoughts. Could he buy Daniel time? Could he face the ghost of his past standing flesh and blood before him? Let me go. He growled, the words scraping their way between clenched teeth. The struggle to break free was palpable, each second stretched into eternity as darkness wrapped around him, threatening to swallow them whole. The man tightened his grip. Oh, but Victor, you don't understand. This isn't just about you or your precious boy. It's about the reckoning. He nodded towards the chaos, gesturing broadly as if the fight raged for sport, not survival. Look around. Victor's gaze shifted. People were scrambling, flames licking the edges of the surrounding trees, casting elongated shadows of panic across their faces. Fear ignited in Victor's gut as Daniel's face flickered in his mind. He had sent his son away into that swirling fray, trusting that the boy's instincts could guide him to safety, but how far would he really get? Focus on the truth, the cloaked man hissed, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper that sent shivers crawling down Victor's spine. All of it. Lies are only a thin veil, and they rip away, leaving nothing but the ugly reality beneath. Are you ready for that? With a ferocity that seemed to come from nowhere, Victor roared, I said, let me go. He twisted and shoved forward, breaking free just long enough to shove past the man. Adrenaline surged through him as he raced toward the sounds of his son, desperate to find Daniel before it was too late. "Stop him!" the man's voice echoed, slicing through the uproar like a knife. Victor crashed through the underbrush, tearing through branches and bramble that snagged him as he moved, heart pounding in time with his hurried breaths. His mind raced, each heartbeat reminding him of the urgency of family, of duty. He stumbled, the ground uneven beneath his feet. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught his eye, a glimpse of Daniel, just ahead, still hidden in the dense wood. Relief washed over him, but a new terror gripped him, more powerful than before. What if the cloaked man found him first? "Daniel!" Victor shouted, his voice raw and hoarse. "Keep running." But then he heard it, a whispered voice in the shadows, a low menacing taunt that sent ice slithering through his veins. "You think you can save him?" The cloaked figure emerged from the darkness, each step wickedly slow. "You're too late." Victor's heart dropped. Daniel, perceived danger, paused, standing frozen as he turned towards the widening darkness behind him. "Dad?" The inquiry dripped with fear, and Victor pushed through the fatigue surging through his body, forcing energy into his voice. "Get back!" he yelled, urgency threading each syllable. "Run!" But then chaos erupted anew. A gunshot rang out, echoing through the trees like a split-second eternity. Victor's body jerked as he flinched, and the world seemed to slow, every detail sharp and screaming for attention. Where was the shot aimed? Who had been hit? "Daniel!" Victor's voice shattered through the night, melting into a sea of unresolved chaos, his heart pounding to a beat of desperation, unsure of what would come next. And as the smoke swirled around him, darkness creeping back with a cruel grip, one ominous thought tore through him: could he save his son before the past swallowed them whole? Victor's heart raced as he plunged through the trees, fueled by desperation and adrenaline, the gunshot still echoing in his ears like a harbinger of doom. "Daniel!" he shouted again, voice cracking, each syllable an urgent plea carried on the night air. The forest loomed around him, shadows shifting like restless spirits, but he forced his body to scour through the dark, hunting for one flicker of hope. His son that he pushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at him like the haunting memories of his reckless choices. Fear drove him, intertwining with the raw panic that coursed through his veins. Daniel's voice, his innocent, trembling voice replayed in his mind, the sound like a siren, promising safety yet threatening despair. With every step he took, the dread that his son might be lost in the darkness clawed at his insides, tightening like a vice. Then, he spotted him. Just ahead, crouched low behind a thick oak, Daniel's wide eyes glistened, reflecting the spooky hues of the moonlight. Relief surged through Victor, heavy but undeniable. "I'm coming, buddy," he gasped, rushing toward him. "Dad!" Daniel gasped, confusion swirling with terror. "I thought, no time." Victor interrupted, the weight of their surroundings pressing down. He grabbed Daniel by the arm, pulling him close. "We have to stick together. There's a monster lurking in these woods. Like in the stories?" Daniel stammered, but Victor's heart was too heavy for minutes spent on comfort. "No, not a story. A very real monster," Victor replied, the fear in his own voice alien yet curiously familiar. It was the monster of his past, the choices he had made boiling over, threatening to consume everything they had built, before they could move. Another rustle shattered the night, branches cracking like brittle bones. Victor instinctively shielded Daniel with his body, scanning the shadows that writhed with malice. Suddenly, the cloaked figure emerged from the darkness, the gun raised and aimed at them. "You think you can escape? The truth cannot be hidden forever, Victor." Victor felt a surge of rage bubbling to the surface. "Stay back!" he shouted, defiance replacing fear. He would not let his son become a casualty of his past mistakes. "You won't take him. Not today." "Taking him? I intend to reveal the lies you've carefully constructed around him." The cloaked man snarled, venom dripping from each word. No. Daniel's small voice trembled beside him, wide eyes still unsure, and Victor turned to him, forcing a reassuring smile. Trust me, son. I will always choose you. Always. The tension coiled tighter in the air, and he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as shadows danced. But in that dark moment, a flicker of hope broke through. Derek lunged from the perimeter, brandishing a flashlight. Get down! He roared, the beam cutting through the night like a sword, leaving a glow of clarity amidst chaos. The cloaked figure faltered, confusion flickering across his face. In that instant, Victor took action, pulling Daniel behind him and surging forward. The night erupted into a cacophony of yells and confusion. Thomas and Samuel emerged from behind, weapons raised, forming a protective perimeter around Daniel and Victor. Freaking run! Thomas shouted, rallying the group, anxiety clear in his voice. With a sudden charge, they scattered, darkness closing in around them as the figures surged toward each other. Victor's feet flew over the ground, guiding Daniel onward. Keep close! He shouted, the urgency barely masking the cracks of fear. He could feel Daniel's small form pulsing with energy beside him, and he knew they were both racing against fate itself. As they broke through the woods and pushed onto a clearing, the reality of their surroundings sent a jolt through Victor. Lights flickered ahead. Help had arrived. He pushed forward, adrenaline spilling over. Just ahead, police cars blinked like beacons. Officers spilled into view, chaos transforming into order as they flanked the area. Over here! Victor shouted, urgency bubbling in his tone. Dad? Daniel's voice wavered. Uncertainty clawing at his small frame again. It's okay, buddy. We're safe now. Victor gasped, relief washing over him as they neared the bright lights, but, just as the officers approached, the cloaked figure emerged again, rising from the dark with rage etched across his vacant face. You think this is over? He shouted, brimming with a twisted ease. Victor's heart raced again, fear creeping back. Don't you dare come any closer. An officer yelled, weapon aimed firmly. The figure hesitated, contemplating the gravity of his choices. And in that moment, something shifted within Victor. His mind rushed. He understood. Tell him the truth, Victor demanded, standing firm against the rising tide of chaos, the truth that sets us free. Daniel's eyes widened, the disbelief melting into a brand of courage. You can't hide just because the truth hurts. He shouted, a voice ringing with clarity. A frown creased the cloaked man's face. You think you're stronger than me? This is my game. No, Victor shouted back, newfound strength pouring into every syllable. This is ours. You lost the moment you thought you could break a family. The officers surged forward, tackling the cloaked figure who fought wildly against them. It was swift, muffled shouts and sirens mingled in the air, and as Victor stumbled back, he felt a sense of quiet reclaiming the chaos. Daniel! He shouted, pulling the boy close, their spirits pressing against the turmoil. Relief washed over him, the past invisible in the light of dawn edging closer. No more shadows, just the warmth of a new beginning. Days turned into weeks as the truth unraveled, pieces of Victor's South life falling into place. He faced the consequences of his choices, and though the hurt lingered, his bond with Daniel grew stronger. Standing together, they watched the sun rise, casting light on a world reborn. There were no more secrets to hide, only a father and a son, bound by love and resilience. I'm sorry for everything, Daniel, Victor murmured, pulling him in closer as the future unfolded. It's okay, Dad, Daniel whispered, a small smile growing. Together they faced the dawn, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that the truth could both hurt and heal. And as they stepped beyond the shadows, Victor knew that love would always shield them no matter what darkness might try to creep back in. Now that you've reached this emotional conclusion, it's time to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us discuss what this means going forward, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps these stories coming, and your voice matters in our journey. Make a difference today.